Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today we got another IEM review and it is this IEM on my desk right now. This is Moondrop Chu. Around 3 or 4 years ago, something like that, Moondrop came out with a predecessor of this IEM. That was the Moondrop Chu. And that was kind of a revolutionary IEM in its own time because it offered a very good neutral balanced sound for the only price of $20. And that was unrivaled for the time because if you wanted to get a good sounding IEM, you had to go above $50, something like around $80. You have to spend that much to get a good sounding IEM. And that opened up this whole new market of super budget IEMs around $20. But at the time, now there's a lot of other manufacturers and companies that have joined this roster. They offer their own IEMs in this price range. It's become a very competitive price range. It's a saturated market. There's a lot of evolved IEMs sound really great. And even Moondrop came up with the successor to their own IEM, which is Moondrop Chu 2. And today we're going to talk about that. Today we're going to see how this thing sounds like. We're going to describe the sound signature. We're going to describe the details in every aspect. And we're going to do some comparisons as well. We're going to compare it to some other IEMs in this price range, see how it stacks up compared to other IEMs. So without any further ado, let's get into this review. And first, let's talk about the box. Let's take a look at the box. And as long as I have the box, let me mention something. There's two versions of this IEM. There's a Moondrop Chu 2 simple version, analog version, which is this version, which comes with this kind of cable and has this 3.5 millimeter input. But also there's another version called Moondrop Chu 2 DSP or Moondrop Chu 2 USB-C cable version. It goes with these both names, but I believe that's the same shell of IEM, same driver, but it has a different cable, and DSP stands for this digital signal processing. So it has a different tuning. So today we're not going to talk about that one. Today it's this IEM. This is the Moondrop Chu 2 analog version, regular version. So this is the review we're doing today. Again, this is the box that it came with thing. There's your artwork over here. It's a small box and packaging. Here's your frequency response graph and maybe a couple of properties that I should mention. And simply, it has a single dynamic driver. It's a 10 millimeter dynamic driver. Not that the consumer would care. And more importantly, what I want to mention is the impedance of 18 ohms and a sensitivity of 119. So, what does that mean? I want to mention something while we're at it. It means that this IEM is very easy to drive. I was able to drive this thing with this simple dongle deck like this, simple dongle like this thing, and using my phone, and it was very easy to drive. I had plenty of overhead of power, volume, lift, so you definitely can drive this thing very easily. But again, also I see on like Reddit and some people, especially people that just want to get into this IEM hobby, they ask the question of, am I gonna need some special equipment or gear to be able to drive these things, or am I gonna get a lot of good improvement on sound? Because there's a lot of fallacies, just a lot of people that I see that have the audacity that say, yes, you're gonna get a lot of improvement in sound quality. I don't know how they get their ideas, but that is not the case over here. And I did some A/B testing that as it is a custom on this channel, I always do. I compared these things with like a single dongle DAC cam, and I also included the sourcing as well too, right? There's some concerns about the sourcing. I used a simple streaming service like Spotify. I didn't change anything, and used this something average, like a regular person would use, an average streaming service with this dongle. And I used something more sophisticated, you could say. This is like a Moondrop Dawn Pro. This is a DAC amp. And it has definitely a lot more power. This is a very powerful DAC amp. So I used this thing, and also with it I used my own library of highest quality files of FLAC files. I used the same version of songs and songs that I know by heart for many years. So and I compared these two, right? I used this thing and this thing. I had to plug this in, plug that in, skip back and forth. Let me tell you what, the results are very, very minimal. Again, if I have to quantify it, it's around 5%. It's very minimal. It's just around the edges of some instruments. And it's so minimal that it could be delusional at some point. I could not make sure if I can improve these results, even this 5%, if I was blindfolded. So yeah, definitely you're not gonna get any specific improvement with this different kind of like specific gear. You don't need anything to consider like that. So if there's some people that say that, just ignore them. Save your money. If you want to invest it, this is like $50. Just save your money and put it into IEM. The difference and improvement you're getting there is much higher compared to something like this. Okay, so I thought I had mentioned that. And moving on, I have some points if you want to improve your sound in the future, what you're gonna do, and I'm gonna mention that as well later on. So for now, let's talk about the accessories that this thing came with in the box. First of all, here's this carrying bag that it came with. It's a very soft and beautiful. It's not real leather, but it's like a pseudo leather kind of texture to it. It's very soft and flexible, as you can see, and there's a very soft fabric inside of it. It's a really nice package. It's nice. I've used this thing for a while, and it's definitely small and it's soft and it's good quality. It's one of the best quality carrying bags that it comes with an IEM in this price range, so definitely that's a welcome thing. But what else does it come with? And it comes with this thing, and I have a lot to talk about that. This is the ear tip selection that it came with in the box. And let me put it out. So unfortunately, this is a very lackluster selection. It did come with 3 different sizes at least. It's a small, medium, and large. I have the small and large here. The medium is somewhere else in my box. It's not over here. But yeah, it's this simple silicone style ear tip. And as you can see in my IEM, I'm not even using the stock ear tips because the stock ear tips are not really good. Okay, first of all, the comfort on them, they don't have the best comfort. I have a lot of other ear tips and I have other IEMs in this price range. They definitely come with better stock ear tips. I have definitely, this is the worst better ear tips that I have in my all ear tip selection. It's not I'm saying worst, but it's not that bad. Okay, let me be fair. I definitely used this stock ear tips for a while. First, when I got this, for at least a month, I used the stock ear tips, the medium size. And yeah, I could live with it. It was good. It gave a good sound, but the comfort was not the best. Especially the first like a day or two, it irritated my ear after an hour of listening. But after a day or two, I got comfortable. I got used to it. I could go for like 2 or 3 hours using the stock ear tips on it. You would definitely get used to it. It's not something that's a deal breaker. What definitely, I wish they offered something better quality. The problem is that it's very like stiff. It's a stiff quality, and it's a narrow bore too. So it's not the best quality, comfort wise, ear tip with it. But the sound signature is alright, right? But something I mentioned earlier is that if you want to get the best performance out of your IEM, specifically this IEM got affected by the ear tip that you use a lot. And for that reason, I would suggest you to use something like this. This is the Duno SNS tips that I'm using on this thing. Definitely for the comfort improvement you're gonna get with these things was excellent. You could definitely go for a long time using this thing because it has this grippy, tacky texture to it. It gives you the isolation without actually putting the pressure in your ear canal. So it's a very good fitting. And not only that, I have to say that this ear tips improve the sound on this IEM a lot too. I'm not gonna say a lot, but it's definitely more noticeable than the, using a DAC amp. So yeah, if you definitely want to improve your sound signature, your IEM sound, and definitely comfort as well too, yeah, go for an ear tip. I used other ear tips. I used the Smith W one and some ones that I don't know the names, but this is the best fitting and the best sounding one on this IEM too. And the sound definitely changed too, and I believe the wider core of this ear tips work better on these IEMs too, because definitely when I put these things on, it opened up the sound on a lot of instruments a lot too. Everything got relaxed a little bit. The IEM kind of breathed a little bit, and definitely your sense of like perceived sense of soundstage improved too. So yeah, definitely if you want your IEM to be the best, this IEM to be the best sounding, yeah, get an ear tip, because the stock ear tips wasn't really great comfort wise. But again, if you don't have the opportunity or the money, it's not the deal breaker. You can definitely live with it, and it still sounds good too. But it's more of an intense sound, more bassy, a lot more intense and intimate sound too. Not a lot, but somewhat. So that is that. That's the accessories that it comes with. So let me put this aside. And now we're gonna talk about the design and cable, because that is the savior of this IEM. I believe that's the best part about this IEM. First of all, let's talk about the cable over here. And this is an excellent cable. As you can see, like how well behaving it is, how well this wraps over here. It never gets tangly. It kind of looks tangly right now, and that is kind of my fault because I've been storing these things for months in my store in a very tight wrap, so it kind of have formed this shape. But yeah, when I was using these things every day, yeah, definitely I didn't get that much of a problem. It never got tangled on me, so it's definitely a great cable. And also it looks really great too. It has this like transparent, clean silicone wrapping on top of this silver, shimmery silver core inside of it. Yeah, it's really beautiful. It has this transparent aesthetic to this thing. The connector and the splitter is very small. There's no chin cinch, but that's not something that I really care about. And also, the best part about this thing, again, it's light and thin, but also it's just these connectors are the best because it uses this small plastic connectors. Because there's a lot of IEMs that come with this like bulky, huge metal connectors, and it looks premium, but it definitely gives a lot of headache. If you want to like replace your cable and put it on something else, those things don't fit the best. But this thing, because it's so small, the connector, and it's like there's no weird recessment over here or like protrusion on this part, it like sits really well, and you can definitely like put your other IEM cables that use these simple 2-pin connectors on it. It's a very well designed cable. You can definitely find cables like this. They're more standard, like this more for replacement. So this is a great thing that they did, and I really like it. So I thought I had to mention that. So moving on from the cable, let's talk about the shells itself, and that's the excellent thing about this IEM, because listen to it. As you can see, like as you can hear, this is a metallic shell IEM, and that's something that no one else in this price range does, and that's why I went for something like this too. And not only that, the important part about this thing is so small, because I had some kind of trauma from my last IEM. It was so bad. It was VOFH Wan'ers. I had so much bad experience from the fit on that thing. It was really bothersome. But so I went with something like this. I wanted to not happen again. Because these things are so small, I wanted to definitely fit into my ear. So if you have smaller ears especially, there's nothing else that you're gonna get in this price range, definitely. This is one of the smallest shells of IEMs that you can find, and it's also made out of metal, so it's a very good quality. It's very durable. In fact, I spent some time on like Reddit, and I don't see any posts about this IEMs breaking. There's a lot of people just approving the build quality on this thing. It has great quality. And yeah, I see some other IEMs being broken, some posts about that, but I've never seen posts about this thing. But what I hear about it, like let me show you. It's milled out of whole shell. The nozzle is like very small. It's not too wide. It's not too girthy. It's not too long at all. It's like very good nozzle. And it has like you can see like you can screw off and replace the filter on it if it gets plugged or something. So like who goes this far in build quality especially for like $20, right? So, but what I hear about this is only one problem that they have. I've heard people say is that because it's made out of metal, especially this brass nozzle part, I believe it is brass. I'm not sure. It sometimes gets oxidized, especially if you live in a humid situation. But that has a simple solution. Just get one of these things, anti-moisture silica gel packets. They just absorb the moisture in your air. Like store it wherever you store your IEMs, and you're gonna be fine, right? You can avoid that easily. As you can see, like I've had these IEMs for a long time. It's not like I treat my devices very well, but as you can see, it's lasted a long time, and I have never had any problems with the build quality on these things. Excellent, tanky build quality that's gonna be very durable. That's a great thing about this IEM. So let me put this tip back on, and yeah, so if you want something to be the best quality, being very durable for you, definitely go for this IEM's excellent build quality. So let me give it a wrap, and we're gonna talk about the next part, which is going to be the sound signature over here. And we're gonna, well, there's a couple of different ways you can look at the sound signature over here. But if you have to generally describe the sound signature on this IEM, I would have to say it's a mild V shape. But I don't like to mention that, like say it like that, because for a lot of people that come into this IEM hobby, um, they don't have a reference for other IEMs. When I say it's a mild V shape, it means compared to other IEMs in this price range, right? But compared to anything else you come from, like your true wireless, like Bluetooth earbuds, this is a sound that's going to be way more balanced and more clear. And starting from that, I want to mention that if you're going to get, of course, from something like that to this thing, you're going to get a much more clearer mids, vocals. The vocals are going to sound very much more lively. The music is going to sound very more clear, and it's going to, that's the experience I had. It's like there was a wall removed between me and my music. The vocals and the mids are very clear. They have like this very echo feeling to it. It's very beautiful. The music feels very like very intimate, much more intimate. And compared to those things, because like those common like Bluetooth earbuds and like headphones that you go like usually see, those are like very bad, like a lot exaggerated V-shaped. At best, they're Harman tuned. But this is very different. If you go from some those things to this thing, it's gonna be very more balanced. You're gonna hear a lot of your music at the same time. You're gonna hear a lot of like the bass and the vocals and the treble in a very more balanced way that's like much closer to the neutral. But again, is it a neutral sound between other IEMs? No, it's not a neutral one. But if you come from that aspect, it's a neutral sounding. It's more balanced. Neutral doesn't mean boring. This means more balanced. It's more natural, right? So again, describing the different aspects of these things. Let's start with bass, and the bass over here is like the best part of this thing, you could say. Yeah, there's a lot of bass on it. In fact, this is gonna get more clear when I compare it to other IEMs in the next part. But it's a lot of bass compared to other IEMs. This is the most amount of bass that you're gonna get in this price range. Maybe this thing and another IEM that I'm gonna mention. There's a lot of bass to it, and the bass quality and profile over here is very mid-bassy. It has a lot of punchiness and aggressiveness. It has good extension, low extension to the sub bass, but what you're mostly gonna hear, it's gonna stay there. It's not like something that hits and decays quickly and it's like fades away. No, it's a rumbly present bass. It's gonna be really groovy and satisfying. If you're someone who really has a habit of like energetic music and you really like music to be energetic, you have a habit of more energetic listening, yeah, this is like I'm thinking hip hop, it's gonna sound really good on this thing because there's a lot of bass on it. It's very powerful and satisfying if you're a kind of person who appreciates that and that's what they listen for in their music, right? And that's the bass over here, and there's a good clear separation between there's a good separation between the bass and the mids over here. And I want to mention the lower mids again. If you're coming from the Bluetooth earbuds, a lot of earbuds and IEMs, just not IEMs, a lot of earbuds, Bluetooth earbuds, they have a scoop in the lower mids. They do that because their devices are not capable enough to actually make that separation by themselves. So scoop that part a little bit to make the separation feel more of a separation between your bass and your mids. But this thing doesn't do that, and it just achieves that separation very well by the power of itself, right? Doesn't have to do the scoop, and that means that there's going to be a lot of good lower mids over here. What does it do? It makes your vocals, first, it makes your vocals way more thicker and more richer, especially with male vocals. It's going to be more body to it and more richer experience. And also with your like drum kicks are gonna feel way more impactful and dense, and yeah, so that's the good part about these things. There's a lot of good lower mids over here, and it's not becoming too much, right? There's still a good separation between your mids and your bass, not bleeding into your mids, right? So that is the mids over here. Again, the mids, there's nothing special to talk about. Like there's no scoops in the lower mids. There's no shoutiness towards the top of it. The male vocals and the female vocals, they sound very natural and good on this thing. They're very clear and clean. yeah, there's nothing to like bad to say about it. And that leads me to the treble part of it again, because it's a V-shaped. It means there's a good amount of treble to it too. What does it do? It gives a lot of like a you could say a lot of emphasis on your like snares and your hi-hats and your drums. So following like uh, combined with the kicks and the drums, so following the drum patterns with this thing and your music is going to be very very satisfying because of the like the boosted V-shaped sound signature that this thing has. There's a good amount of treble on it. It's very present. It's slightly above the average side, so it's definitely never coming close to a line of being harsh and sibilant, so do not worry about that. But again, it's not being dulled or smoothed over sound as well too. It's a very energetic sound. Again, if you it's just that combination of the treble and the bass, those are the most prominent part of your music. That's the most what you're gonna hear in your music: the bass and the treble, the hi-hats and your drum pattern, and the vocals sit in the middle, slightly behind these things. And it is a sound signature that you're gonna get with these things, and depends on your preferences. Do you have like more energetic habits of listening to music? Is that what you're gonna prefer more? Yeah, it's you have like energetic music, like hip hop again. That's gonna really be what you really gonna enjoy on these things. It's very good. It's very powerful, right? But all of these descriptions might not mean a lot to you unless we do some comparisons, and that is this part over here we're gonna talk right now, the comparison. So let me bring up some other IEMs in this price range. I'm gonna bring up two, but there's another one that I've heard but I don't own. I'm gonna mention that as well too. So here's one. This is the Truthear Gate, and there's another one. This is, oh god, this is Tangzu Wan'er. So these are the two that I own. I also am gonna compare it to 7Hz 02, but I don't own that one. But I have heard it, so I'm gonna mention that. So what am I gonna describe first? Again, the bass, right? Let's start with the bass. Who has the most amount of bass thing? Definitely this thing, and then and this and this. But I want to mention that this has the different bass profiles between these two. Not only the amount and quantity, this is the ranking I would go for, but also the bass profile. This is the texture on this thing. Again, it's drumbilly and groovy and punchy a lot. That's because I'm gonna mention that, describe that, name it as mid bassy bass profile, compared to this thing on the other side of the spectrum. This is a very sub bassy bass profile, right? It means that it's very clean and lingering, and it's gonna stay there, but it's gonna be very analytical and clean. It has a lot of sub bass distinction, but there's not a lot of punch and groove. But definitely you can hear the bass line and you can follow it up. And if you've heard anything like sub bassy specific, that's, you know what I'm describing between these two right now. And this thing sits in the middle as well too. It has some of the DNA of this thing and some of the DNA of this thing, and also with the amount and the bass profile as well too. So yeah, and the 7Hz 02 also is very, in any comparisons I'm gonna make, it's very close to Moondrop Chu too. That also has a lot of bass and also a lot of treble. That's also V-shaped kind of sound signature compared to these things which are not. So let me, as far as I'm there, let me do the comparison between those two, which I don't unfortunately have on my hand. 7Hz 02 is a very very close sound signature to this thing. So if you have a want something to be, you're considering this thing, that's also a consideration that you should make. That's a sound that's gonna be really close in DNA to this thing, but it's gonna be better than this thing. That has a slightly better resolution and better be resolving in the mids, clearer mids, and it's better, slightly better bass texture wise. But when I'm saying that, it's very very similar between these two IEMs, right? Don't be mistaken that it's going to be a lot different. When I said there's an improvement there, it's going to be a lot. But there's a toss up, right? There's always a toss up between these things. Although that thing might sound like, I don't know, 10% better, but there's a problem is that the quality of the build quality there is not as good as well too. The cable is it's not as good as this thing, and the build quality is made out of plastic. It's not going to be as durable and well built as this thing. Especially if that's a very important thing to you, yeah, that's what you should consider and like put into account. So that's the difference I'm gonna make between those two. Other than that, the sound is very very similar. And in fact, I want to mention that the sound signature in all these price IEMs, like $20 budget IEMs, it's gonna be very similar. It's gonna be 80% similar sound signature DNA, just small hints of differences between like different parts. And if you want to consider buying something different in this price range, I say make your decision mostly based on your accessories and your cable and your design and your build quality. And then if those things don't matter to you, then compare the sound signature. Because the sound signature, you look at the graphs too, like they're gonna be very similar, just hints of difference. There's not gonna be a lot of improvement over this on one over that one. There's always gonna be toss up. One does that part better, another does this part slightly better. And again, these differences are very slight. So yeah, definitely, I think the other factors are more important, more of a differentiating factor. They're more similar than they're different. I always say that this price range, these IEMs are more similar than they're different. So that's the difference I made between that and what about these things, Truthear gate and this thing? It's a very different tuning between these two. These two are more similar together than this thing. When I said this thing goes for a V-shaped sound signature, this is more of a neutral with a hint of brightness. There's not a lot of bass, and the bass, even profile and texture, is very different to its sub-bassy compared to mid-bassy, punchy, aggressive bass compared to like a sub-bass, clean bass. That's not going to be a lot. It definitely sits at the back of your mix, and yeah, the vocals and the treble are going to pop really a lot here. This is the most amount of treble again in my ranking. This is the most treble I will rank them. This is a lot of treble, right? And then this thing has some treble, but not as much as this thing. And this is the last. This is kind of a smoother, trebly sound. And yeah, these two are more of like a star of the show over here. Is their mids and the treble, and their mids. When I said like this is a neutral with a hint of brightness and like boosted treble, it's a boosted sound. It's a boosted treble. It's like a neutral. The vocals are very poppy, and the treble has a lot of sparkliness and liveliness to this thing, and the bass is very neutral too. That's what we described as a neutral with a brightness hint, right? And again, I say hint because it's not that big of a difference. Again, this thing goes on the other direction. It's a neutral with a hint of warmthness, more of a bass, less of a treble. And this thing goes the opposite direction of these things. It's not similar. It's more of a V-shaped sound signature, more of a boosted treble and bass, and the vocals are in the middle. So that's the difference between the sound signature between these things. Again, if you're not sure how to make these decisions, leave a comment. Maybe I can help you. It depends a lot on your preferences. People say like try to judge that based on your music that you listen to. I don't like that, but I mean, I guess it has some merit to it. But I would say it's more important to judge based on your habits of listening. So if you want something to be more relaxing and not to grab your attention, but when you want to listen to it, you go for something like this smoother treble and for a little long listening times. What if you have some habits of more energetic listening music? You want to play, yeah, it depends. People have different habits of listening to music. You go for something energetic like this, right? V-shape, a lot of bass. You want, yeah, again, if you have the ear for the micro details, you want to listen to your music analytically more, and not so much of a relaxing and not so much of like a rock out to your music. This is the kind of thing I would suggest you to go for, right? Again, you could judge that based on your music listening. But yeah, that's the comparisons that I made over here. And I believe that is it. So let's not make this any longer than it should be. And that's the comparison. So let me know if there's any other comparisons that I forgot to mention, or any specific questions you have about these comparisons, or even questions about the sound signature over here that I had described. I forgot something to describe or something to compare to. Definitely let me know in the comments. I will answer your questions. And in conclusion, I will give you, this is a very hard recommendation I give you on this one. It's a very good IEM, and I think the star of the show over here is the build quality. I think that's the best thing. If you want something to really build a lot of time and you're concerned about the shell size and the build quality and want something to last a long time, this is the one that I would recommend you to go for. And it's a really good and capable sound as well too. It's a V-shaped, energetic sound, good bass, good treble, very clear mids. Very natural balanced sound with a hint of energetic sound, right? So in conclusion, I'll give this thing a recommendation and a score of 4 out of 5 stars. And let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you in the next video. And I hope you stay safe wherever you are and have a good time. So I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.